Greetings everybody and welcome to the official Elite Dangerous live stream. This is episode 3 of Join the Elite, which is the live stream all about inviting our wonderful developers onto the camera, onto the live stream to talk in depth about some of the mechanics behind Elite Dangerous. I think last week we had Michael Brooks talk about exploration, and we've had, who was in the first one? It was come on brain, kick into gear brain.
I'm not helping you.
People, no, you probably didn't watch, but that's not a problem. Anyway, so with me, we have the amazing, the absolutely wonderful Laurence Oldham. Now, Laurence, who's head of design on Elite Dangerous. So we've had a lot of guests over the years, over the last year and a half, last 2 years, on these live streams. We've had the David Brabens, we've had the Sandy Samarcos, we've had people like that, but we've never had you on here, even though you probably have a hand in every single aspect of the game. And that's pretty impressive stuff. So everybody in chat, seriously give Laurence some love here because he is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're feeling okay and ready to tell everybody a little bit about trade today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. And so everybody do say hello. And can anybody, look at that, Corpse plus Vid, that did happen. What was it? Does anyone remind me what my first episode was? Because for some reason my brain just absolutely deleted. I really can't remember. It was Exploration last week. And the week before, we did, it was Steve Kirby with
community goals.
That's it, yes, thank you very much.
Steve's doing community goals.
So we have lots to do. Now that that's returned, and my brain has returned to me, I can get on with the show. So we've got lots to show today. We're doing all sorts. We're going to tell you a little bit about trading. We've got lots of questions from the forums that Laurence has very kindly read through all day. So you picked out some.
Long, but yes.
Well, we didn't want to spend the entire live stream going, we can't answer that right now, or no, sorry, we're not going to answer that question. Yeah. So you've gone through and picked out quite a lot, but we do have pages and pages of questions that we are going to get through. We're just going to go through, and again, I've said this last week and the week before, but this might be teaching a lot of you who are sort of experts of the game already to suck eggs, but hopefully there will be some things in here that maybe that you didn't know, or some in-depth information about those features that you didn't know, and then of course, these questions that Laurence's wisdom is going to shine through and make it all worthwhile, all of it. So, everybody, thank you very much for coming. GriefTube, thank you very much. Stephen Simsey, look at all these people saying hello to you as well.
Indeed.
A pleasant bunch. And today's live stream is brought to you by the ESS with the Galactic Intern mug. Fantastic bunch of people. Right, so without further ado, let's get rid of our ugly faces, my ugly face, and let's start playing that game. So obviously here we have, the ship, my ship,
Type 6.
My Type 6, yeah. So I've gone for a Type 6. It isn't the first ship that you may start trading in. Obviously everyone starts trading in a Sidewinder, but it's probably the first one that's like the first main ship of trading.
Yeah, well, you can move into the hauler.
Yeah.
Is a kind of an earlier route to it.
This is your first step into it.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend that people get started out? Some people suggest that you maybe combine it up with sort of missions and things like that, or your trading that you do to then help get those extra rewards to then push you up to those higher ships faster.
It's definitely worth essentially multi-threading whatever you're doing. So combining other activities with it. It also means that you're also engaging in other things at the same time, which kind of gives added layers of depth and colour onto your activities in there as well, nice. Rather than purely focusing on the trade. Okay, this is very Blue Peter, by the way, everybody. I went in here earlier on and made up a ship in advance and made up a route as well. And I just want to say before we do this route as well, it's actually, I didn't pick the best route because people are precious about their trading routes. Is this right? Yes, they're not always easy to come by. They're not always easy to come by, and people are really super precious about them. So I didn't want to choose a route that perhaps everybody will be like, no, you're showing my route, and it's going to get dissolved afterwards. So I sort of picked a halfway in between route to see how things will go. So what we're going to do is run through a bit of a route on here as well. And run through some of the details and have a look at the galaxy map screen. I think that's what we'll do first. Okie dokie. So I've obviously with the outfitting, make sure you obviously always have the maximum cargo space. I have any other tips on there? Obviously you need to look at how far you're going to go because quite a bit of trading is getting to the good places quickly. So it's often worth looking at what your FSD can do.
Yep.
So there's a kind of balance between how much cargo you can carry around and the places you're wanting to get to.
Yep. There's also, I gone for Ds mainly, something I learned from exploration days. It's just to be as light as possible so you can jump as far as possible. My laden at the moment is 18.8, which isn't fantastic, so it will take me a couple of jumps to do the route that I've got today. I've got a couple of jumps. Obviously, some of the most hardcore traders here in the chat will be like, why don't you get one where you could just do one, where you just do one jump back and forth? Like I said, I'm not trying to show the best routes, I'm trying to give you an idea of what some of the best routes are. So obviously, lots of cargo. Shield generator, I just go for the lightest one. Planetary approach suite comes as standard.
It also depends on what kind of routes you're taking and where you're going with your cargo. So obviously, if you're just sticking to the safe trade routes, and you don't have to worry so much about
this one isn't.
Stuff.
I got
this
interdicted.
is highly dangerous.
Yes, when I practiced this one twice, I was interdicted on the route in as well. So I've got small hard points. I deleted both of those. Got rid of them. I decided I don't want them light. So this is going to go well, guys. This trade route is going to go really, really well. I mean, my demonstration, every single time, I'm like, I'm going to demonstrate perfectly how to do it. And both times, first time I landed incredibly heavily and damaged my ship on the live stream, and then in community goals I was destroyed easily in seconds in an anaconda. So we had a good time. So chaff launcher, useful for traders?
Useful if you get into combat situations.
Okay. Shield boosters,
yes,
useful.
Definitely useful.
No lasers. I'm just going to escape. I'm going to try and escape. So let's go over to
run for the hills.
Start showing off some of the most useful information. So again, if you do have any questions in the chat for Laurence, do throw them in there. I'm sure Laurence will be happy to answer. Like you said, we've got this whole bit of questions here, all highlighted in wonderful green, as you can see.
Positive green.
Positive green, that Laurence can answer as well as we're going through. So while I'm heading on my way, I'll get Laurence to start reading out some questions. But first of all, let's have a look at this screen. I'm sorry, I'm throwing so many things at you all at once.
What?
How do we read this screen? And what information am I gleaning from this screen?
Okay, so on this screen you've got lots of things that you can look at. So obviously, first thing is this showing the different economies. Economies tend to determine what trade items are available and what is desired between those particular things. I think there's some pretty good infographics that the community made out there.
Good, good.
Yeah.
That's a good
segue.
Wait for it.
Didn't even know if you had it.
No, I do. Here it is. Look at this thing.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing here in relation to then the screen, which I'll bring up afterwards? So you will have seen, in fact, I can switch through quite nicely here. So obviously there you can see things on the side. You've got extraction, refinery, industrial, agriculture, terraforming, and you can turn those on and off, nice and easy with, and I like this as well, a swipe of the mouse.
Elegant.
You would almost call it elegant, couldn't you? So how much of a hand, first of all, sorry, I didn't really introduce you that much at the start. Head of design, how much of a input into trade specifically did you have?
Trade, so a lot of this was set up by myself and a chap called Andrew Thomas, who's one of our kind of magic designers, who's very good at kind of scripting and setting up sort of little simulations. So I think some of you in the very early years would have seen the kind of the Magic eSim that we did, which was and one of the things
I
where
wasn't here
crunching,
for that, but if you were
crunching lots and lots of numbers. You know, we kind of ran through various scenarios and stuff. And
how long does it take to do so? I saw some of your spreadsheets earlier on, and it's absolutely insane.
They grow and grow as you add as you add more things into them, but the underlying structure is relatively simple. Yeah, so it's more being methodical, I think, in terms of adding the stuff. And admittedly, yes, I should have delegated more out to other people.
It's not the Laurence way.
No, sadly, it's one of the things I'm working on delegation. But
You've got Sandy and all those guys,
who are excellent, who work incredibly hard.
And your team's growing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. The team continues to grow to kind of make all the use of all the opportunities that we've got, and even then, there's just so much that this game has to offer, so much that can be kind of built on. That yes, we could have a vast team of more people to fully do the ideas justice.
We should do a week where we all just become designers for a week. Everybody in the business, just for 1 week, It wouldn't work, would it? Can you imagine my ideas? Anyway, so let's show in relation to this. So extraction, refinery, industrial, agriculture, terraforming, high-tech colony, all those sorts of things.
Yep.
And then I'll show that infographic again. And as you can see, as I'm scrolling through it, it might be a little bit small on your screen, so I hope it's all right. But this infographic was made by Prometheus Darko, or collected by Prometheus Darko, and designed by Warp Spider X, two fantastic commanders. So if you Google Trader's Bible, Elite Dangerous infographic, you will find this. And it is a really lovely tool, and also Thruds trading tools also fantastic and really help you. They're just two tools up ahead that I would really like to point out. But yeah, talk us through what we can see here.
So basically you're looking at the commodities. So commodities are kind of grouped into types of things just for ease of kind of use and understanding. You'll see this, later when we look at the back of the map, we'll see something slightly different. But if you look at the little discs, the small discs either side of the pesticides, yeah, for instance, that actually shows you what economies, produce them.
Oh, there you go.
So that's the buy
sense,
from side, yeah. So you go, so pesticides you buy from high tech and you sell to agricultural.
Simple.
Yeah, simple. And it basically goes down. Some of the things, obviously everywhere wants them.
Multiple.
Yeah. Hydrogen fuel's a little bit different because obviously mostly it's used for fueling ships and that sort of stuff. So the profits on that are pretty damn poor.
So for people who are just starting out, this is a good guide to like, okay,
to where you can source it from. So what you would do is then you go back to the galaxy map and say, okay, I'm looking for high tech, let us say.
Yeah.
And then you turn off all of those.
I don't know.
I don't think you're actually on a high tech as it stands anyway. And then you just click back on high tech and there you go. I mean, high tech is actually one of the rarer economies anyway. So you'd probably have to zoom out to see many more. So there's a few more over there.
Yep.
As you see.
I'm missing the trade lines and things like
that.
So
the trade lines is I think it's further down. So trade routes, yeah. At the minute you've got them all turned off, so you'd want to probably turn them all on.
Oh, that's because they're off in here as well.
They're off in there as well.
Everything's off.
Everything's
I don't
off.
know who did this. It wasn't me. So just
I did it just to spite you.
there you go. So we're seeing something there. So we do have some questions. I mean, maybe one of the questions in there. Why don't you specifically relate into these things?
So there's a number of questions about what from a number of people asking what they actually mean. So basically, they're a representation of player and AI trade in the background. What I think people find quite confusing with this is that it doesn't indicate profit, it indicates the amount of trade that's going on. Okay. So it can actually be almost the reverse of what you want. So if there's a large line of a load of trade going over there, then it may well mean, it means that they've got that stuff in stock and it means it's taking it to somewhere that's appropriate to take it to, but it means that the profit margins could be quite low because the AI are potentially and the players are already fulfilling that. Right. Because the galaxy is so vast, the data itself is also relatively behind, so it's not necessarily the most up to date data. It will be up to date on the location that you're at, but the rest of it tends to be quite sluggish. So it can be that you arrive there and actually the situation has changed. But that's one of the challenges of having such a large galaxy, as it were.
Yeah. So how do you recommend sort of using these then to your benefit?
So I think looking at where it is, looking at where it's going, is still is a generally useful function. So certainly if you're just starting off, but doesn't give you necessarily the answers as to where is the best place to go. What is the best one? It's just it's a nice kind of visualization to saying what's going on and what's happening.
Fascinating. I was going to say, like, I've found a route earlier on, or I was helped to find a route earlier on, and I already have one in mind of where I'm going. I wrote down Agatavun, I think it is. So I'm going to demonstrate sort of. I think it's that one. Yep, there we are. Obviously not one of the things that I have highlighted right now, and that's why it's not showing anything on there. It is, like I said, I thought it was 2 jumps away.
You may have souped up your ship enough to go for.
Oh no, I've not got any cargo in there yet, so I need to buy some cargo, of course.
Yeah.
The most important thing about a trading.
So another thing to note is that you can obviously use the slider on there to simulate the fact that you've got cargo or not.
Okay.
For the trade route.
Yes.
Just as a reminder.
Just as a reminder, I could have done that. Yeah. Everybody. I didn't.
But then you might have forgotten.
Okay.
To take
say
the
for
cargo
example, I
with
have a
you.
full. There you go. Now you can see that it's the 2 jumps that I was expecting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But I'm not going to forget, because you'd forget if you didn't have that on.
Yeah.
So.
All by design.
Also, later on, we will be going into sort of on rares, and you can see there that the Azure milk is slightly, well, it's yellow. It's a sort of more of a shimmering yellow colour.
Surely as it's blue.
As it's blue.
Azure blue.
Azure's blue. Oh no, it's definitely yellow.
Yeah.
I bring you on to do the jokes.
So, I mean, actually, there's a question about this screen that let's bring it up. Where is it specifically? Oh yes. So, Freedom4556 was asking about the high-low status, which is now represented by these bars relative to the number of supply and demand. Right. So the demand and the supply is actually the physical stock that they've received or they've got to give out.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the actual status is relative to the capacity.
Right.
So that's how much it can overall have or how much it overall wants. Yeah.
Right.
So in layman's terms, the higher the demand in terms of the bars, the numbers themselves aren't really that relevant beyond giving a scale. It's more how much they want it.
Okay.
Yeah. And how much supply they've got. Yeah.
Yes.
So
how do I use those to my sort of advantage?
If they've got a really high demand for something, they will be paying you better amounts of money. Okay. Whereas if there's a very low demand for it, they've got loads of it. Hey, we don't really want any more of this. Yeah. So therefore they're going to pay you a lot less for it.
Or zero demand, completely just
zero demand means that they're absolutely not interested in it, or they've got so much that essentially if you try and sell it there, it's just going to be, you'll get what we call a dumping price for it.
That's an interesting one. That's an interesting example there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. So they've got very low.
Very low demand for that. Okay. Right. Sure. So I have seen. Well, I don't even know, to be honest. I'm gaming it a little bit. I've been told that this is a good thing here. Obviously, it's got high supply.
So interestingly, at the moment, which is a number of the comments, which I think are quite pertinent, really.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Is that basically at the minute the most high-priced goods, are permanently the best things to buy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's not enough kind of variation in that. So we're looking at a number of things to try and resolve that. Such as. So we're looking at. I mean, a number of the comments are pertinent to that, in that we're looking at increasing the amount that you can, or increasing the range of values that you get for low security systems. Okay. Which would mean that you're more likely to make more of a profit at the low security systems than you currently would, and obviously the higher security systems will be a little bit less profitable. So the kind of the average price would be sort of so if you go to a very secure place like Seoul, even if you've taken all of the goods, which is unlikely because Seoul's got some ridiculous amount of population to make it realistic, you would only be able to hit a maximum value of a low amount. So
no, it makes sense. Yeah, I think so. I think, well, does it make sense to everybody at home? If you've got any more questions about that specifically, that will be understood. Really good. Zach, Elite Dangerous says, I understand the trade lines would be great. I thought we did go through those trade lines.
So, to a certain extent, I think one of the big issues is the amount of server data that we've got, which I think a lot of people in a sense find difficult to understand, and I kind of appreciate that, because they look at a lot of offline games or the kind of the old 4X games and that sort of stuff, and say, look, we had all the data here, we had all the data all the time, we can kind of cross-reference it and that sort of stuff. when that data doesn't actually exist in a lot of instances until you actually interrogate it on the server.
Okay.
So if we had that data everywhere, the server would be interrogating every market all the time, and we wouldn't be able to achieve that.
It's an incredibly dense system.
Yeah.
An incredibly dense
However, we are certainly considering the idea of having some kind of a last visited log.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's under consideration. Obviously, not guaranteed, but we're certainly looking into that as a concept, which again was raised in the questions. So I think that's something that we would look to get in, and we'll hopefully with that allow us to be a little bit more, even more dynamic. Because I think one of our concerns about making the system overly dynamic is it then gets frustrating if you don't have the tools to be able to interrogate that system. So there's a kind of a balance between having the variety coming in, which I think, as I say, is a little bit too stagnant at the minute. But getting more variety, we need to make that legible. Mm-hmm. We need to make people be able to understand why is this changing.
So how do you do that?
So some of the things that we're looking at again for 2.1 is
2.1 everyone.
2.1 is
we are still here.
Is dropping beneath the desk.
It's all right. No, people will be fascinated in the things that you've got on those pieces of paper.
Yeah.
So keep pointing through. It's fine.
So 2.1. So yes, the other thing that we're looking into as kind of part of the major kind of revamp that we're looking at 2.1 is more of a reaction or an effect of the background simulation. Which I think you're going to have a thing about in the future.
In a couple of weeks, we'll have Davon talk about that in real detail.
However, one of these things that I think is mentioned in here as well is that the system state currently is only having a minor effect on what's happening in the markets.
Okay.
So
we've got some Mattel, some NBC Pirate.
So we're looking at obviously increasing those and making them kind of much more kind of extreme and polarized. Yeah. So that you will only be able to sell food, for instance, when there is a famine, but the food prices will be massively larger and getting a much bigger, bigger profit margin.
Mike talking to me about sort of something to do with the mission system as well being similar. You're more likely to find relevant things in those types of systems, and obviously the profit margins will be higher, more rewarding for those types of things. I think that's really, really interesting.
So it's also going to not just, so again, that's not, which kind of comes back slightly to the res. It's not just going to affect the standard trade goods. It's going to affect the whole lot. So the amount of rares that are produced during a war will obviously will be lower. Whereas obviously in other where there's a boom, the amount of rares will actually increase. So it'll actually be tying into a more kind of interesting system, and certain places won't want any rares anymore because obviously they're suffering from a famine and a plague. Right. So what the trade routes that become milk runs, so initially they're interesting and then become boring, will hopefully be kind of a little bit more mixed up by this, so that it then does kind of give a benefit for people to look around and start finding other routes as other opportunities open up. And also the same with the, as I was saying, one of the concerns is trading just between the big systems is a little bit dull, which is why we're trying to force, but trying to encourage, the players to go to the slightly more dangerous and risky systems, by increasing the profits. So it's a risk reward thing to kind of gain more depth in that.
There's a few people specifically who were asking about that, weren't they? Are there any more that are sort of on that kind of area?
Let's look. So incentives to trade in more dangerous systems from the great Alexander the Grape.
Alexander the Grape, thank you for your questions. I know you're probably here in the chat with us. Say hello if you are.
Pixel Demon also. So yes, Freedom4556 was asking about the faction states. Yep, so they're definitely going to have a big that, and also for stuff that you find in space as well, the salvage stuff will also be affected by that as well. Whereas previously it was a little bit flat. So that it was just salvage can be accepted anywhere. Now it's going to be better places to take different types of salvage to contextually. So obviously if it's kind of more about military stuff, it's maybe more relevant to kind of places that are in war. yeah, and they're not going to care so much about trade data. Yeah, so it's a kind of helping to try and get that geography.
Too fast. Oh, I'll go wrong side anyway. Just going to go for another approach.
So, what are we doing?
Just going to offer some flying tips there, but then I messed up. So
avoid behaving like this. It's definitely
yeah, this is a good.
Don't do that.
Well, that's what I do every week on these live streams. I show how not to fly, so then you can learn from my mistakes.
So
I'm just showing a typical trade run here, by the way. If you are just watching and sort of maybe going, what are they talking about? If you've never seen this before, this is a typical trade run. Follow my example for a typical trade run and listen to Lawrence if you're more interested in the expert side of things. More information, Lawrence, go.
Yeah, so also looking at raising some of the profit thresholds on some of the lower value goods so that we're getting more of a parity.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would mean that, as I say, it's not just the palladium and the imperial slaves.
Yes, some people are saying there's only two things that are actually worth anything.
Whereas with this, actually, the idea would be that there would be much more value in the lower value goods, and certainly, obviously, some of the states will do that, and that's looking at the profit margins. I mean, it's quite difficult to get it right, yeah, and obviously, it's one of the things that really has to kind of go out there, be tested by everybody, see what happens, but it can be quite unsettling because what it does is it obviously does change how the underlying simulation works.
Okay, well, so as you can see right here, I've just completed a transaction. So if you are just sort of learning the basics from me, it was a decent, I made quite a bit of money on that, but of course you want to find yourself a route that is on the return journey as well, is going to make you a lot of money. So we do have some gold here, I think. Oh, I was told we did. Here we do. Look at this. And I know this is going to do well over the other side. So there you go.
Cargo hold at maximum capacity.
So I'm going to be making money quite solidly, nearly 100k from every single run that I'm doing here, back and forth. Obviously, when you start out doing sidewinder and a hauler, you're not going to be able to do as much, but you can sort of slowly build towards that. You combine that up with community goals, combine that up with missions and things like that.
And we're also looking at rares and stuff, but obviously one of the things about rares is that you need to have some relatively good flight capabilities in your ship, because they do need you to take them a decent distance before you actually get a return on them. As you were asking me earlier about the sort of the differences, were there any differences in that? And so the lower the price of the rare.
Okay, so rare, that's a good point. Well, we're going to show it in just a moment.
Okay, I'll shut up then. I'll let you.
I'm
jumping the gun.
Specifically, one thing I want to get to in just a moment.
Later. Okay, that's fine. I'll shut up. Ruined it all.
It's right. Live stream over. Now, so going back to where we were before, of course, that was Leasty. So I'm going to be typing that in here and heading back over that way again because I'm completely laden. It's going to take me 2 jumps. You want to try and find somewhere, if you're trying to sort of min-max this stuff and really try and find a decent route that does want to, and I know there are a lot of people out there will be saying, why are you not jumping in one jump to the trade route? But this is sort of
landing gear
just a good example of a shorter one. It doesn't take long and I'm making 100k a run. That's pretty good. Some people can do ridiculous runs though, making like
I mean, there's also been a number of kind of tube maps of rares that have gone around. So you're doing a kind of rare run. There's obviously the restrictions of the amount that you can take. Obviously means it's not more ideal if you can kind of collect and then pick up and move around.
But I think that's one of the beautiful things about Elite Dangerous is that it doesn't. If you do want to do that sort of fast trading, get as much money as much as possible, it is available there for you. But I think that some people do, like we touched on earlier, find that it becomes almost not a grind or anything like that. But this is what we're trying to work towards as part of the development, right? With 2.1 especially, is every aspect of the game we're trying to improve it and build upon it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the focus of season 2 as a whole, in the sense, is building on what we've got, better displaying, what's in there, better explaining what's in there, so kind of people can understand and engage with it more appropriately, rather than it being completely kind of
all right, this isn't going to go
arcane.
Well. This isn't going to go well.
You'll be fine.
Should I try and escape, or should I just submit and then run away? Oh, I made it.
Done it, see? Told you you'd be fine.
Thank you very much. If it wasn't for your support, Laurence, I would have been worried. But yeah, so more questions while I'm traveling to the next place. Is there anything else that you want to cover in the questions that came up?
Okay, what else have we got? Trade routes.
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
Covered most of the trade routes stuff. Kind of covered what we're looking at in terms of trying to get some kind of history in there at some stage, so that we can see where people have been and what they've been doing.
So how much history I know that you can't really talk too much about it, but what's the dream? What would be the dream situation for you to have?
I don't know. I think it's still very kind of early stages. So obviously, as suggested in there, there's a potential of having your last X locations that you can interrogate, or perhaps it would be the last X locations that sold that good and the price of that good at those X locations. So you rather than keeping it all, because obviously it's kind of a lot of data to be kept, and it may be more useful to kind of almost kind of tag, well, where was the highest price that I found that, rather than just keeping the last 5. It keeps a single thing, but those are sort of things, as I say, that are kind of to be debated. And obviously to fit in against all the other things that, all the other interesting and outstanding other things that we're needing to do to kind of get the game as good as it can be.
So, Mike, can we talk a bit about wing dividends and how that sort of thing works as well?
So, wing dividends, there's kind of a couple of questions on that. So I think one of the main things that is that yes, there's a 5% dividend that you get when you trade within a wing. So everybody within the wing is essentially given a kind of bonus by the starport is the idea for having brought them in as potential customers. So rather than it being, which was maybe suggested in the thread, a cut off your profits. It's actually a kind of pure boon. Our kind of concern was if it was not given like that, then there's always a question of, well, do I give you any money, or do we? It then kind of actually makes it it's an immediately positive thing for everybody. I think there's some queries have been asked that we've been looking into, but I don't think that's in the near future. Is looking at maybe being able to share the profits around, but I think that's further on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is something that
it's something that's been it's been considered.
But the simple functionality is you join it with someone in a wing. And
the nice functionality, you join it with somebody in a wing and you get a 5% bonus.
I mean, that's pretty massive. It can be pretty massive.
It can be pretty massive,
especially if you're all trading.
And that's strictly speaking on the profits. Rather than, it's not the bonus, obviously, on that. It's just on the profits that are made.
Okay, and concentrate
detected.
on landing. Don't worry, I'm doing nothing illegal. Oh, the black market questions. Some people asked some of that. I don't know if you had some of those on there that you wanted to cover, or.
So
currently, I'm obviously doing everything by the book because that's the kind of guy I am.
Yep.
The Galactic Intern would never do anything illegal, especially with Daddy's money.
So again, we've been looking at the payouts and stuff from black markets at the minute. We're trying to make them a little bit more beneficial for the kind of the mid-range goods again. Right. So there's essentially two numbers behind it at the minute, whereas we're going to start looking at breaking those numbers down on a per commodity basis, whereby that if it's stolen, you essentially get about a fraction of the price, whereas if it's illegal, you then get a bonus. So we do a multiplier on that. So there's a multiplier which reduces it if it's stolen, and a multiplier which increases it if it's there. But that's obviously not a nice thing when we've got such a vast different range in prices of the goods. So it means that you get a massive escalation on the really expensive stuff, which means that all of the cheaper stuff tends to be kind of really kind of not worthwhile.
Yeah.
So we're trying to kind of equalise that out again, making it kind of again more engaging to kind of pick up other items, not just that. And hopefully some of these kind of state changes and stuff will also interact with that. I spotted somebody asking about the black markets also selling from
Yes,
Bill Brown.
so we could sell to black markets. So why can't we buy from
why
them?
can't we buy from them?
That was one of the questions.
So at the minute, it's a very simple implementation. So again, it's something that has been under discussion, both how I gain access to the black market, what I can access within the black market. So another thing that was kind of mentioned is kind of building some kind of reputation, to kind of improve my access, improve the rates and that sort of stuff is certainly something that we're kind of looking into. Again, not in the short term. And alongside that, yes, there is certainly a desire at some stage to fit in being able to purchase it from the black market. Currently, the way it works, it's a non-trivial, using the horrendous term, way of actually kind of getting that into the game, just because of the way it was currently structured.
Interesting. So somebody's asking the cargo never appeared in the amount list black in the economy market. So we ran out of cargo. Is that a bug or intentional? I don't know if that's from Billy Bob Lee, if you can see that. On there. Just going to grab a few more things. So I know there's a few more things that we definitely want to talk about. We've had some bugs in at the minute that are reporting that the markets aren't fully showing the data, and that is being investigated. Okay, great. No, good stuff. So with wings, before we move on entirely from wing trading, so to be very, very clear, you don't have any profit removed from you if your wing mates are there. So there's a complete boon. There's a complete bonus. Yeah. In the law way of saying things, it's just
It's basically that the station is happy that we've got other people's custom.
It's like yes,
it's like welcome here. Here's
like a traders union almost thing.
Come back.
Keep doing that.
We want you because you're going to use our other facilities like the outfitting and whatever else is there. So that's the kind of
when do you sell that to make sure that your wing mates get? Can it just be done at any time and they will always get it?
I think so. I'm not absolutely sure on this, but I think you certainly have to be within the same session.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. I don't know whether you actually have to be docked. I think you don't have to be docked.
Okay, but you do certainly have to be in the same instance.
Yeah.
Okay, right, that's good. So you can't just be doing it halfway across while you're at one instance. So that's another good one. Some more information as well. I've got some more questions here that I want to get. My personal questions. I just think going back to
I'll answer those guys.
Yeah. Take a look at this. What do you think this is? Did this look infected to you? No. Is this normal? What is a good way of finding a decent trade route then? If I'm a complete noob guy, no jokes there about me being actually a complete noob guy. If I'm very new,
so I think in some ways I would just look at what's available, what's showing on the galactic average on the right on this particular screen.
Yes. Okay. So what are we looking at? What does this mean?
So that means approximately. So basically, the server does a very long trawl over a matter of a few weeks to work out explicitly what the galactic average is.
Okay.
Yeah, and that should give a rough indication of whether or the amount of profit you'll make on a good. It's not always the case because obviously you can sell it. The prices fluctuate wherever you go, but it tends to give you a kind of reasonable, as a starter, a reasonable indication. So it won't necessarily give you the big bucks, but it's certainly for a starter, it'll probably be fine.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
because
it's because it's a rare. Then you'll have to you need to kind of travel a fair distance with it to be able to get that. And obviously, as a starter, you're possibly not going to be able to afford it in the first place. It's the other side.
So
of
we're going for something very low. You're finding it high.
You'd probably find, with the current situation, you would find the one that was the highest possible price that you could afford to fill out your itinerary, whilst also obviously, depending on how kind of risk averse you are, retaining enough money to cover your insurance should you get in trouble.
Daddy's billions.
In most of the descriptions it should be saying exactly where you can take them to, so you don't necessarily always just have to use the infographic.
So is that right?
So it should be towards at the bottom. No, of course it isn't.
There's images, technologies, all that sort of commercially viable hours. Many industrially produced foods, so you're looking at industrial worlds. Oh yeah, consumed by all except agriculture.
Yes, it's actually towards the top.
Towards the top, sorry, yeah. So you don't need the infographic.
Well, I think the infographic nicely summarises it. To be honest with you, so rather than kind of clicking through and looking at it, but then you can go, okay, that's a good price. Where did it take it to? And I would go and look at the galaxy map, and probably find the nearest place that's actually doing that, and select that and go there. The other option, as you say, is to look for some missions around that area, which is the other way of doing it.
Don't know if there are any here, by the way, before. I didn't check the but
what?
I know. Didn't do my research beforehand. But is that one? Trade mission.
Looks like it. Yeah. So you're taking some consumer technology.
25,000 credits.
Yeah, which is an enormous amount.
I mean, and a lot of this as well.
Yeah. So then what you would do is you go and look at Leasty, and check the trade routes that are going there and seeing what's coming from your current location to Leasty, and say, okay, this is probably a decent good to be taking. Then going back and check again, on the market.
I'm in Leasty currently, wherever it was saying to go to.
Yeah. So you go to that location, you see which trade routes are going in there using the thing, and then
all the way down here.
Yeah. So you'd redisplay those and work out where it was saying it was going to. Yeah.
But it's something that you are dedicated to, Laurence, isn't it? Obviously, all the questions that you've answered today, constantly improving and working on these systems.
I think that it's an ongoing process. It always needs a kind of a lot of improvement, really. I think the core of it is there, but actually getting the balance so that it does continue to maintain a dynamics. I think it can quite quickly kind of atrophy a little bit into a kind of a series of known trade routes, and getting the balance right whereby it's not too chaotic, where you're just going, oh my god, the forest is just changing everywhere. There's no way I can kind of make sense of the reason my trade routes are closing up every 2 seconds. That's pointless. And something where, okay, I'm just stuck in this milk run forever. Is
a milk run. Talking of milk,
milk. Very pertinent. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So rares. What are they? Why are they?
So rares.
So on.
The original and basic idea was a rare is a good that actually increases in price the further you take it. To do that, we implemented a relatively simple S-curve, which basically means that the nearby places won't pay you very much for it. You'll then get a rapid escalation, and then at some point it will start dropping off again.
Okay, so there's a sweet spot.
So there is a sweet spot.
Okay.
And there's
tips.
The tips is, basically the more expensive the rare, the further out the sweet spot will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's something that's known, actually.
So the cheap rares will have a closer sweet spot, essentially, and the expensive rares would have to go. You have to go further.
So you're looking at there's two in here. There's Leasty Evil Juice, which is a good fun name. 8,000. Also the supply here as well that you're seeing. Obviously you're telling me about the supply and demand. Is that random, the allocation that's given to me?
So with each of the rares, there's a random allocation within a maximum limit. So this is some of the stuff that we would look to changing when the states changed. So potentially you would, if it was in boom, you'd actually be able to kind of get more than you normally would. Essentially the server rolls a dice each time you look at it until you've got a cargo of a certain amount, and then it says, you've got enough of this. Yeah, that's the kind of the underlying.
It's super cheap to buy though from here. So I'm going to buy some of that.
Yeah. So some of them are incredibly cheap, and that one's not so cheap.
Yeah. So that's going to be an awkward trip for me then, isn't it?
That one will be a while, but the other one should be. I mean, both of them are quite long, so they're not necessarily something. Yeah.
So what kind of distances are we talking about?
So you can be talking kind of 60 light years, that sort of thing.
60 light years,
which is quite far.
Yeah,
it's not terrible. It's certainly not. It's not Sagittarius A type
I'm with
stuff,
the distant worlds guys at the moment. I've jumped over 50,000, so 60 light years is nothing.
Yeah.
It's not too far. I mean, for a starting ship, it might be
for
a
a
little
starting
far.
ship, it gets challenging. It's the sort of thing that you probably want to do again whilst you're
also trading other things.
Also trading other things, especially. I mean, that was kind of the reason for the limits on it, so that you don't just fill up and you just do that. Yeah. So that you're kind of the aim is to try and get kind of people to diversify. Yeah.
So 85 is probably too far away. You reckon, or?
I don't know.
There is no exact science to it.
There is an exact science
there
to it, but I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me that'll tell me exactly how far you need to jump at the minute. I'm pretty sure there's something out. I'm pretty sure that somebody's already reverse engineered the
Yes, I do know that there is the Thruds tool is quite good at showing you how far
it needs to go for us. I mean, it's not a complicated algorithm to do, so it's going to be easily done by just selecting a few points and working it out backwards. So it is entirely scientific to the level of it just being a simple graph.
A simple graph science. Right, okay. You're ruining my immersion, man. No, I'm joking.
However, as I say, we're looking at then modifying some of that a little bit more based on what's kind of going on, whereas previously it really was pretty much that flat.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas we're now kind of looking at kind of giving it a little bit of a kick to get a bit more, a bit more stuff in there.
Mad tips here, boost straight out of the letterbox, keep going. As soon as you see that the mass lock is gone, start charging and then turn towards your target. Just for maximum speed if you're trying to make the most amount of money. But that's not part of the fun for me. But there you go. This is in case you want to be a super trader. So any more questions, Laurence? We've got a little bit of time left, and I know that there's probably still a few more questions you can get through here.
Let's see. Okay, so what other factors, apart from the economy type, affect the price for a given commodity?
Who's that from?
So this is from Rootstack. Rootstrat. Oh, I apologise, that's terrible. So what other factors? So you've got obviously there's the population, the amount of AI trading and the amount of trade that's been going on, actually affect the price for a given commodity. So in the end, there's a minimum and maximum price for all commodities that is at a particular location, and that's depending on how much their demand has been fulfilled. So if their demand is completely fulfilled, they will pay you the smallest amount of price for it. If their demand is completely unfulfilled, they will pay you the largest possible price, or the largest price they're willing to pay. This is then, as we discussed earlier, I mean, at the minute it's not well enough, but will be modified by the level of security. So if it's low security, the boundaries will be wider. So I would actually be able to, I would then be able to sell it to them for more money than I would be previously. And if they had a full stock of stuff, I'd be able to buy stuff cheaper than anywhere else as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Other things that determine on standard of living kind of tends to change bits and bobs there. So there's a number of kind of background simulation numbers that we look at, like wealth and that sort of stuff that.
Of a particular starport or a system in general?
Of the system, it tends to be the system has a single number, and that kind of feeds in.
Okay, it might be worth me saying here as well, because obviously I've just come out here at random. It might be worth us having a quick look at this before then going back into that. I didn't mean to interrupt you at all on that. I'm terrible for it, Osric knows. This place, how do I know if it sells or not?
So if you look at that place, then you would go.
Go to the information thing at the top.
Yeah, go to the information thing, and then you say, right, it's extraction. It'll show the major imports and exports in terms of what has been done as a player and AI trade recently from that location.
Okay, so what? So say that again. That's showing data that's live. This is live data that changes, or is it?
So that is data that changes. It's not necessarily that live, but it's certainly being updated. In the background as to what those imports and exports are. So they would be different elsewhere. So I'd look at a extraction. In extractions, it's not always going to be those particular commodities. Right. Yeah.
But similar.
Oh, very likely to be quite similar. It may virtually always be the same. Okay. Yeah. The level of difference is kind of depends on how full the AI simulation is and the player simulation is, and what's kind of actually being going on. So that can dynamically get modified.
Okay. Great. Let's head over to. Oh, I didn't select a place. So we can see that basically they will at least take my goods that I have, even though they're.
So Will Stevenson, no, we haven't answered the question about the starports being that are further away. It's something that we're considering, but would need further discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the question?
So the question is,
give
which
some context
is
to
the reason one is that certain starports, for instance, obviously the old Hutton Orbital,
Yeah, you
are
can't.
a very, very long way
Yeah.
away. At the minute, it mainly focuses on the AI mainly focuses on distance between systems and security, rather than actually in system distance itself. Yeah.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm assuming that the point would be that. The further away it is, we ought to be, again, a bit like we do with the low security, looking at increasing the range of profit margins,
depending on how far it is away.
Depending on how far it is away. So the further they're playing is, so therefore you're rewarding the distance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a.
And Osric actually says in the chat there, everywhere takes rare goods. My question from earlier about will they take my rare goods? Everywhere takes rare goods, right?
Everywhere at the minute takes rare goods.
Everywhere at the minute. That's an interesting thing to say. Yeah. Again, that's something that you're considering.
So we're considering looking at that now. Whether it fully gets banned or not is another matter. But yeah, we're certainly looking at certain states going, this isn't necessarily an appropriate thing to be doing. For instance, I was mentioning in famine.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm suddenly just trying to provide them with a load of I don't know, weapons. Yeah. So signature weapons or whatever they are, or alien eggs just for the fun of it, or whatever they are. Yeah. Or many leathery eggs, I think they are. Then it may not be seen as appropriate for the thing to do that. So again, it might mean a little bit more looking around, a little bit more travelling around, but then that's kind of the part of the fun in some ways, is that it's not always, it's not just a simple milk run. It can be changed.
And that seems like almost a design philosophy that you're adopting for the changes.
I think it always was. I think it's just a matter of getting the time to be able to focus on that, along with all the other things. And as I say, that's kind of some of the advantage of what we're doing now is with
2.1.
With the 2.1 is trying to take another look at some of these things and give them a bit more love and address the concerns that are going out there. Not as I say that we will be able to address everything, and not that all the fixes are going to work, because it's a complicated system. But it's an ongoing process, and it's something that we're learning from as we're going.
Any more questions in the chat for Laurence? I'm sure Laurence will be more than happy to answer your questions. Is that right, Laurence?
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, good.
As long as they're on topic.
Yeah. Any more from the sheets as well that you want to cover? It's my concentrating face, making sure I don't overshoot again. You can't.
Again, he's being into this again.
Could I have just dropped out then, by the way, if I just double tapped?
Yes.
Well, that's weird. He's. Oh, no, he hasn't. Yeah, let's see what we've got here. Nah, that's not. Well, that's really frustrating because we're so close. I mean, I'm going to have to just, rather than high wake out, I'm going to have to just.
So another thing that we're looking at, which is somebody's Crimson Cane was asking, how can we influence the offer and demand values? Well, obviously there's the basic stuff of stealing stuff. Well, not stealing stuff, sorry, of taking stuff and delivering stuff. Obviously changes what they directly need. One of the things that, again, we're discussing to look at in the future is having an overall kind of state of the market, so that actually if the market has been delivering a lot, things overall improve. Whereas if the market's been starved, then things will get worse. And then also try to tie this in a little bit to the ships and stuff and the amount of piracy that's going on. So actually players would be able to kind of more universally affect a actual market. So rather than it being the individual good that you're affecting, which is what you can do at the minute, you then start to affect the market as a whole.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's something that we're kind of considering. Obviously, in the long term, that would play into what another question, which was actually, I think it was one of the kind of I think it was Dunnikin was looking at overall changing the stats of a system.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, if it starts trading really well and it gets ballsy, then potentially we could look at increasing the overall population. These are things that are currently kind of relatively static because they're baked in. So we would need to consider, how and whether we can do this. But it's certainly being considered in a much longer term. Right. It's actually being able to kind of almost evolve a system from some kind of little outpost in the middle of nowhere into being a kind of a bigger, more populous hub. Obviously, there's going to be kind of limits to it depending on what's in the system and that sort of stuff. But that's something that we've been considering.
So I've got I can sell here. So that's only getting me 4,377 profit.
So you may need to travel further. What was this? The Azure Milk?
This was, the Azure Milk, but I may need to travel further for that. That's only getting me a 10. So it looks like I do have to go a little bit further than that if I want to max it out. What you're umming and ahhing about that. Well, maybe, I might not get around to doing that, but I would want to go further on, so I work out where I come from and look at all the ships I've got lying around.
Quite an armada.
Maybe I don't need to trade these. Maybe I just go around in my Corvette. Right, how do I? So I would work out where to go and go maybe a bit further on. I did read somewhere like 130 plus light years are actually like is sort of a good measuring stick
for the more expensive ones.
For the more expensive ones, okay. For now, though, I'm happy with my profits there. I don't need money. I'm not. But you can work out for those players who do want to, with rares, you can sort of work out a rares ring, can't you, and find different places that do rares and sort of swap between the three and move around. Yeah,
so you can pick up one and then you go to the next lot and you pick up your next lot whilst actually getting the distance to then sell it, and then you get to the furthest point and then you kind of come back, and there's some quite interesting circuitous routes that other people have done.
Very good. I'm sure that there's lots more that we can cover and haven't covered, but we are coming up to an hour's time. Are there any more questions? First of all, from the chat, did you see any through there as you were reading through?
I was actually more concentrating on the ones I had on the paper, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Yes, Stu Barbs, we did talk a little bit about black markets. Do watch the video on demand back. I'm sure we can put some timestamps in there to show when we're talking about certain things.
Sure.
There's people just chatting about the pricing structure of the game. Fantastic. Welcome to the trading live stream where we talk about the pricing structure.
Bartering on the price of elite.
At least it's thematic in some ways. That's a good question from Osric.
So one of the things that we're looking to try and get into for 2.1.
Just really, really quickly, for the benefit of the people who aren't watching the chat and don't see the chat there, the question is, how are you going to inform the players in the game about the better places to sell goods in the situations you're talking about?
Yeah, so we're going to be able to display on the Galaxy map through a filter the states of locations, which is going to be quite a strong indicator of that. Obviously, finding out where anarchies are, we can already do that by selecting the government type, which tend to be the most dangerous places. So in general, looking at those two aspects should give you a kind of clear indication of, one, what the kind of things that they're demanding because of their state they're in, i.e. famine or outbreak or war. Will give you a good idea of key you into what are going to be the kind of the new high value goods to be taken into those locations, and the things that you can kind of exploit. And then they obviously, as we were saying, looking at buffing the benefits for going into dangerous locations. So looking for dangerous locations as well.
May have been answered previously, but will there be updated, improved ways for third-party tools to access trade data? What do you think about the third-party tools and the way that they do these sorts of things?
I think the guys have done an excellent job with it. It's very, very impressive with what they've managed to achieve with what's out there. I think the difficulty is it takes a lot of our time as well to support those things, and as I say, we're looking at, as I say, in the near future of trying to get some kind of log mechanism that the player can kind of look at to kind of Not that, but I don't think that's ever going to kind of rule out the use of these other tools.
Yeah.
I don't think particularly they are kind of a negative impact
No,
on
I
the
don't.
game from my perspective. I think if people want to use them and they're helping them play and giving them a good and engaging experience, then it's and from my point of view, that's fine.
Yeah, so things like Thruds trading tool, that's THRUDDS, that's one that I've used a few times. And the infographic that we showed as well earlier on. Another question is, for me, sort of maybe wrapping things up slightly, because we are coming to the end of our time here, unfortunately, but thank you so much for joining us. For me, is what is the thing about trade coming in future that sort of excites you the most? Something that you've got behind the scenes that you want to you can't wait for people to experience?
I think the thing that excites me and scares me the most, is trying to play with the numbers to get the whole thing a bit more dynamic again.
Okay.
Yeah, is to try and, whilst also as you guys have rightly been pointing out, having it still, as Osric says, in a sense, having it more legible, so that actually, rather than it being, well, where the hell do I go, it gets people going around a little bit more, rather than just getting stuck in the milk run. So it's more of a kind of an engaging experience, and pushes players to experience different things, locations and situations. And
it must take a lot of iteration to get something like that to be as effective as possible.
We try and run and test the numbers as much as we can, but the reality is there's nothing that is exactly the same as a huge number of players out there actually playing the thing. And you don't really know what's going to work well or
So
what's going to break horribly. Yeah. I think it's interesting.
Be kind when it comes out. Be kind to Laurence, because you can imagine poor Laurence sitting there going.
Hopefully it will all be for the better,
Yeah.
because it does seem to be. I think everybody kind of acknowledges that it would be good to kind of mix it up a little bit, but yes.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Laurence, and thank you everybody at home as well. I know that there's a lot to get through with this incredibly dense topic, but I hope that we covered a lot of the different aspects of it, some starting stuff and maybe filling some of those gaps in some people's knowledge about trade as well. We have got Powerplay coming up next week, Sandro Samarco, an ever-divisive topic that should be sure to be exciting.
Yeah.
It should be an exciting live stream. Sandro always brings life to a stream, so do come along for that. And then ongoing after that, we've got background sim, but we've got lots of different topics that we are going to cover in the lead up to the very exciting 2.1. The engineers update, of course, which we'll have some more information for you as soon as we possibly can. So again, Laurence, thank you so much for talking. I really do appreciate you coming on. Yeah. Thank you everybody at home. I hope I hope you had some good information. Do leave some comments in the forum thread that we posted with all the questions on there, because maybe
and happy Easter, everybody. As well.
Oh yeah, happy Easter. Thank you. I know. God, dropping the ball there.
Off,
You've all got, if you look under the chairs, you've all got an Easter egg under there that I left there earlier. That's not true. A bit creepy. And on that note, everybody.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah, moving swiftly on. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will be back on Thursday with the CQC live streams. I know that a lot of you do sort of come along to those live streams as well. We are going to be bringing those back in. It's not going to be next week. It's going to be the week after that. It's just scheduling conflicts and holidays, and everyone's everywhere. So thank you again, guys, and we will see you very, very soon. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.